The magical weekend in October did not disappoint. That was a great weekend at college football. Welcome back to another episode of the Walk on Redshirts podcast. If you're not doing so already, make sure to follow us, subscribe to the podcast, check out all of our content. Just posted our 700th article on the walkonredshirts.com. 700 posts on there. So there's stuff for everybody. Can guarantee that your team is mentioned in there some way, some form, maybe unless you're an FCS fan.
The 700th article, Jake, I don't know who the writer was. It may or may not have mentioned World War I. It may or may not have mentioned Kent State. And it may or may not have mentioned the MAC conference. Well, that's the Kent State part.
It also may have mentioned an elementary school teacher.
It did. So, you get a lot of things in our articles. You get a lot of things. It is a hodgepodge of information.
There is a lot going on there. Make sure to check it out. But first, we've got to talk about this past weekend. And that was an excellent, excellent weekend of college football.
Before we recap the weekend, Jake, we got to crack something open.
Oh, you're right. You're right. We are here this week with Heart State Brewing. Heart State Brewing, if you remember what we had last week, was Homestead. Heart State and Homestead Beer, basically the same company. But this week we have Break, an American IPA, soft, tropical, juicy, and easy.
Those are the superlatives I got in high school.
On the can it says 9 out of 10 people will mansplain to you why this is the best style.
Let's see if we're part of the statistic.
Ale brewed with Pilsner malt, oats, Citra, and Galaxy hops. I would love to know what Galaxy hops are.
Hops from a different galaxy. I mean,
also, if you're not doing so already, make sure to go get yourself a band fall weddings glass. We still got. I saw way too many people at fall weddings last weekend. That was an absolute terrible pour on my part.
Me too. I just had to sip some.
If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that this was probably the worst beer pour of my life. Cannot even try it because there's so much foam. We'll get back to that in a minute.
I like that. That's good. So you're doing it something a little bit different. This is the IP. This is the Guinness of IPAs, I guess.
Yeah, I'm making sure that it just settles for itself. I guess I should probably look when I pour my beer next time.
Don't let the haters tell you otherwise. That's how you're supposed to do it.
I'll just take a sip out of a can so I can actually taste it.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Ooh. I wonder what 9 out of 10 people would say about it if they're going to mansplain to you why it's the best style.
It's the best style because it's got hops from the Pilsner, which is a light style that you can sit around with, and it's German style. And then it's got the Galaxy hops, which is really common with our IPAs nowadays, especially when you want to get that tropical New England IPA flavor, which is the most common IPA and probably the best IPA in America. So this is why this is a really good beer.
9 out of 10 people will mansplain to you why it's the best beer. What would you give it out of 5?
That's a 4 out of 5. That's a 4 out of 5. Solid 4 out of 5.
I'm drinking out of a can and not my glass right now, so I've got maybe a different flavor for you. But I'd probably go like a 4.1, 4.2.
Give the froth a try. What would you rate the froth?
Ooh, just the froth.
Yeah, frothy just a man.
Just tastes like bubbles.
I think we might have a new nickname for you, Jake. You might be Frothy. Frothy the Snowman.
Frothy. Yeah, we're getting close to that.
We are.
All right, let's talk about some college football from this past weekend. Well, before we actually get into that, I want to talk about a couple news things. First, Cam Rising.
The game decision era is over, Jake.
Maybe not. He's a game time decision for next year.
That's true. That's true. Now he's a season time decision.
His season is over, but they are evaluating his long-term future and seeing potentially about another year. I think if you're Utah, it's time to say, Cam, we really thank you for everything you've done. It's time to part ways.
Well, a lot of coaches now with players like in this situation are saying, hey, why don't you come get some coaching experience, but you keep that year of eligibility, and if we need you to suit up, you can. I don't know if you remember back in 2018, I believe it was, Zeb Nolan for South Carolina was a GA, but still had a year of eligibility and ended up having to play a few games and playing decent. So you have a guy like Cam Rising. Hey, dude, quit Brett Favre in college football. Finally step aside. But keep that eligibility if you're able to get it, and coach and help these young guys out and let this program move forward. But I want to add to this too, Jake. I hate that his legacy is this, because Cam Rising was fun to watch and was a good quarterback before all this stuff started happening. And I know it started last year, and we started the joke. Humbly, I'm claiming that we started this joke, Jake. No one else did. But Cam Rising, I felt, had a good legacy building at Utah, and now all we're going to talk about going forward is that he's been there too long and that he's a game time decision. It's funny, but dang, I hate that for him because he really was electric.
Yeah. He wasn't always the most consistent, and I feel like we're talking about him like he's dead, and he's not.
Game time.
He is a game time decision, and I think Utah really needs to say thanks. We really appreciate your contributions. It's time to move on, because for the last 2 years, he's only played in like 4 games. Yeah. He missed all of last year after the injury in the Rose Bowl. And I think he needs to find a new home as well. He needs to find some new scenery for the final year if he does choose to go that way. I put out on Twitter that I thought Michigan would be an interesting option if he opts to go that way, because if you think about how J.J. McCarthy played last year and how Cam Rising plays, it's a similar style of quarterback. They're not the same quarterback exactly, but Cam Rising can get things done with his legs. He's not the most accurate passer. JJ was probably a little more accurate of a passer.
Yeah.
But Michigan needs a guy that has a live arm and can also get mobile in the pocket.
Yeah.
Right now, all of the guys on Michigan's rosters are not that. Now, they've got Jaden Davis, who is a pretty highly ranked recruit coming out. I wonder if they'll want to try to give him the keys next year. But between Jack Tuttle, Alex Orji, and Davis Warren, none of those guys are going to be the answer next year. So if you want to take a flyer on a Cam Rising, knowing you've got some younger guys behind him, that's not a bad thought.
Well, they need a quarterback, and pardon me, but they need a quarterback who's not afraid to drop his nuts. And if there's anyone out there like that, that's Cam Rising. I mean, the play that comes to mind is the Pac-12 championship, RIP Pac-12, where he just gets absolutely blasted against USC, comes back, and then just drives down the field and ends up winning that game. He's fun to watch. I want to see more of the pig farmer, though. I want to see more of the pig farmer. Is he still there?
Barnes?
Bryce?
No, he went.
Barnes.
He went. I think he's at Utah State or Nevada, or he's at a school out there. I'm pretty sure.
Well, actually, we should probably stay away from farms. You should ask. Old Mike Gundy what you.
Yeah,
should
tell me
do
what happened to Mike Gundy.
So Mike Gundy was supposed to zoom into a press conference this week and ended up coming in and not showing his face. And when they asked him why, he had to explain to them that he was headbutt by a cow on his farm and had a bloody eye. And it was so bad that he could not stand up and was very disoriented. What does that sound like? It sounds like a concussion, but a guy with a mullet is never going to tell you he has a concussion. So he's got a bloody eye and you don't want to see his pretty face on the camera. But only Mike Gundy could get headbutt by a cow in the middle of football season. And I swear we're going to see him against BYU on the sideline looking majestic with a bloody eye, and that mullet is just going to be flowing. Is it in Provo or is it where's Oklahoma State? Why am I forgetting where Oklahoma State
Oklahoma State's in Stillwater.
Stillwater, thank you. Is this game going to be in Stillwater or is it going to be in Provo?
Between him and Utah?
BYU. They're playing BYU.
BYU. My bad. Yeah, BYU. BYU is home this weekend.
Okay, so it's in Provo. So we're going to see Mike Gundy just scaring away all the Utes of Utah, our Cougars, excuse me.
I was like, the Utes, different school, different location.
It's all the same.
Let's talk about this past weekend of college football, because, boy, did it not disappoint. I feel like a lot of times we go to this specific weekend, we know that we have a big weekend coming up, and a lot of times we get a letdown. And then there's the weekends we're not expecting to be super exciting, full of madness. But this weekend provided a lot of excitement.
It showed up.
Obviously, the key game was Ohio State versus Oregon. And this game was back and forth. But when I sat there watching it, to me, it felt like Oregon had a little bit more control of the game. Ohio State was clearly like they could move the ball at times. Will Howard played one of the best games I've ever watched Will Howard play in his 75-year tenure. But he he played phenomenally. That's what they were looking for when they went out and got him and replaced, Will Howard from Kyle McCord, because he only had 7 incompletions, did not throw an interception. I'll put an asterisk next to that. But even if he had thrown that interception, it wouldn't have been his fault. The tight end would have dropped it and basically handed it to the defensive back.
Oh, yeah. That was weird.
Yeah, and Ohio State really got to the line fast enough to hike it. You could tell that they were going almost immediately. But even so, that play should have been stopped. They moved the ball 30 yards down the field. There's no reason why the official shouldn't have stopped it and replayed that.
And that's not even the most controversial thing. The most controversial thing is the end of the game. And, I like what Will Howard was doing. You got to be a little bit more aware of the clock. I know that it's a pressure situation. You got to be just a little bit more aware. And we know that when you go down in 1 second, an extra second is going to tick off. But the biggest controversy right now, Jake, is the whole 12-man on the field Dan Lanning masterclass, taking advantage of a rule. And now to the point where the NCAA is doing the thing that they're making the fastest rule change they've ever done in their entire life, or being of a company. So Dan Lanning puts out 12 players on the field purposely so that Ohio State has to lose the clock. They have a better chance of stopping them, and then there's a penalty. So all they have to do is eat 5 yards. They lose 10 seconds off the clock, and now you're in a weird situation as Ohio State. Dan Lanning came out and said he did that on purpose today, or it might have been yesterday. And the NCAA is saying that, hey, they're going to investigate this rule. 2 things I want to say. Number one, he's not cheating. He's taking advantage of a rule that's there.
Absolutely
that's
not
cheating. That's gamesmanship. I mean, when you're in big games, like, cool, that was smart of you to know that. Is it stupid? I think it's stupid, and I think the NCAA realizes that, and that's why they're already investigating this rule. Don't follow the clickbait. They're not investigating Oregon. They're investigating the rule. I fell for the clickbait. The article said Oregon to be investigated, and then you look at the subtitles, the play to be looked into, or the penalty to be looked into. What's going to happen is they're just going to change it to a penalty where it's an automatic 5 yards. To you have the opportunity to decline it and get the time back on the clock, or you can accept it and get the 5 yards. That's what's going to come out of this, and I think you'll probably see it either by the end of the year or definitely next year.
They were saying it might be changed by this weekend. Honestly.
Yeah,
that's the last I read is they might have something in place by the weekend.
It's the Kenny Pickett situation, like with the.
It's exactly the Kenny Pickett situation, because if you don't take care of it now, you're going to run into issues with it later. And somebody made the comment to me of, well, it was such a specific situation. Like, how are they going to do it? Let's say somebody's got the ball on their own 20-yard line with 25 seconds left. They need to go down and kick a field goal. You could just continue to run 12 guys out on the field, and you could say that they could just spike the ball every time. Well, if you're going to lose time with that, eventually you're going to be, running out of time. Yeah, right. Okay, you might get 20 yards down the field, but a spike is usually going to take 2 seconds.
Take 3, 2, 3
yeah,
seconds.
If it takes 2 seconds, that's 8 seconds off the clock. If you only have, 25 seconds left, the team might give up 20 yards for those 8 seconds, or depending on where you're at, how much time is left. You might be willing to just go out there and hope that maybe they don't see you, and maybe they don't have their guys counting. I mean, Marcus Freeman ran 2 plays with only 10 guys on the field. How can you guarantee that, you're not going to notice that 12 guys are out there, or that in a key situation, you don't run 13 guys out there and make sure that it doesn't happen? Who's to say that, you don't figure out a way to run an extra guy out there if you know that things are going to get weird and you want to get a preview of it?
Yeah, what did it was the old Ryan coach, not Rob or Rex. What's the dad's name? What's the dad's name?
Buddy Ryan.
Buddy Ryan. That's the old, but they called it the Polish defense, the Polish goal line defense, where they put 13 people out there. Marcus Freeman just took it the opposite way. I think he misunderstood the rule and he put himself at a major disadvantage. But I mean, honestly, like I'm not biased in this game, so I want to hear what you have to say too. I don't think it was bad. I think it was gamesmanship. I think this was an excellent game, and the people who are crying for A, Ryan Day's job, and B, for Ohio State just being sucking again. Shout out Heather Dinich for a terrible take today. I think that's foolish. They just played the number 3 team in the country. It was a 1-point game. You're on the road in one of the toughest environments to play in all of football. Shout out Josh Pate. What are we doing? What are we doing? I mean, I got to deal. I had to deal with crappy Clemson football fans for the past 3 years who are so entitled and spoiled and don't know what it's like to only win 9-10 games. You know, Ohio State, you probably won't lose for the rest of the year until you play Oregon again in the Big Ten championship, and maybe you get another loss. I don't think so. I think if you play in a neutral site, Ohio State wins this game. Home field advantage gave you a 1-point victory for Oregon. I think Ohio State wins pretty handily on a home field, on a neutral site. Essentially a home game for Ohio State.
It's funny watching the reactions of this game, of basically saying Ohio State, like from national writers for the most part, that Ohio State basically isn't worthy. And we watched a 1-point game back and forth. Both teams had the lead multiple times. It was a phenomenal game. Could both teams have improved? 1,000%. I don't believe either of these teams played their best game. They both had flaws. Oregon couldn't get the kicking game figured out until they kicked an onside kick and drilled the guy in the chest. They botched they botched an extra point that was nearly returned for 2 points, which would have been an absolute wild turn of events, because then the game would have been 9-6. I did think Oregon was chasing points way too early. Oregon went for 2 on their second possession and made I believe it was 14-12. I don't think you should ever chase points in the first half. There's absolutely no reason to do that. They set themselves back further, because if they make the extra points, then all of a sudden, like, I think it would be a 3-point game and they would be potentially tying. I think that also goes a little bit different than for Ohio State. You know, if they're understanding that they need to tie the game, yada, 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 I think that could all play out a little bit different. But Will Howard played great. The thing to me for Ohio State moving forward is they had a bunch of guys get injured. Your starting left tackle is done for the year. Josh Simmons is done for the year. Josh Simmons was probably, if he wasn't the best, he was probably the second best offensive lineman on this team. There was some discussions about him being in, the top 2, top 3 rounds of the NFL draft this upcoming year. Losing him for the rest of the year is brutal, especially when they lack the depth at tackles. They lost their tight end, Will Kamarick, for, they said, a couple weeks. To me, the biggest issue for Ohio State was the lack of pressure. They had 0 sacks in this game. When Dylan Gabriel wanted to run and they were finally able to get somebody in the backfield, there was nobody home, and Dylan Gabriel was able to take off. Denzel Burke was cooked worse than a well-done steak.
Yeah, and when we talked about this game last week, I said this game was going to come down to if Ohio State can put pressure on Oregon, and I was fully confident they would. I mean, the thing that I highlighted was that Ohio State had the 8th-ranked pass rush defense, in getting sacks, and Oregon was 46th in the country. I thought that Ohio State was about to eat. I said Ohio State was going by 10. So these teams are a lot better than I thought they were. And then I also want to do this, Jake. So a lot of people who want to have Ryan Day fired. So there's another guy down south by the name of Kirby Smart. And I want to compare Ryan Day's resume after 5 years and Kirby Smart's resume after 5 years. Kirby Smart ended up winning his first national championship in year 6. Okay, so here's the comparison, Jake. Ryan Day, 53-8 total record. Kirby Smart, 51-14 total record. Record against top 15. So you want to say, oh, well, Ryan Day, all he does is play cupcakes. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's go against top 15. Record against top 15. Ryan Day, 14-8. Kirby Smart, 12-10. So still advantage Ryan Day. All right, well, how about the top 5? So a lot of times in the top 15, there's frauds. There's no frauds in the top 5. All right, Ryan Day, 2-6. Not the best, but you're playing top 5 teams. You're not going to win those every single time. Kirby Smart, 2-4. So not only has Ryan Day played more games, he's equaled the same amount of wins as Kirby Smart. And then games against your rival, or maybe not your biggest rival, but a rival, Ryan Day's biggest rival, 1-3 versus Michigan. And against Michigan is probably one of their best eras in a long time, the past 3 years. And Kirby Smart 0-3 versus Alabama. And then the next year, Kirby Smart goes on to win the national championship. I think this would be Ryan Day's 6th year, right?
Correct.
Right. So essentially, this would be the year that Ryan Day gets it done. So everybody wants to get them fired. Would you fire Kirby Smart if he was the coach for Ohio State? I don't think so. So why are we trying to cost this man his job? Yes, you're mad. Yes, it sucks losing to Michigan. Yes, it sucks losing big games. But you're not losing them as often as you think you are. It sucks to lose big games. But you play in a bunch of them. You know why you play in a bunch of them? Because you're a freaking good team.
Yeah, I think that this season really comes down to Penn State and Michigan. I don't remember what I said, but I'm pretty sure before the season I thought that Ohio State would lose on the road to Oregon.
Not Michigan, Indiana. You did. The Big Ten preview, you said that they would beat them. Indiana is the team you got to look out for, not from Michigan.
Indiana is scary. Kurt Cignetti has it rolling. So we'll see what he's got here in a couple of weeks. Nebraska's a big test for them. But funny enough, Josh Pate just put out his power ratings. He's got Ohio State number 1.
JP Poll, baby. Love it. I love it.
JP Poll has Ohio State number 1, Texas number 2, Georgia number 3, Oregon 4, Clemson 5.
Hey, Josh Pate knows ball. Josh Pate knows ball. Let's talk about it for a second, Jake. Let's talk about it for a second. So, I'm sorry. You asked for my rant a couple weeks ago. You didn't get it. This might start borderline a little ranty. You know what I'm starting to hear a lot of right now, Jake? What do you think I'm hearing a lot of right now when people talk about Clemson?
That they're overrated.
Because
they haven't played anybody.
Oh, yeah. Oh, last year we beat Wake Forest 17-13. Maybe even a smaller margin. Might have even been 15-13. Last year we lost to NC State. Last year we lost to a terrible Miami team. Last year we lost to Duke. Last year we were in a dogfight week in and week out. This year, those same teams are coming to town and Clemson's handling business. So, yes, it does give you a little bit of doubt when you get smacked by Georgia week 1 and then you turn around and just freaking steamroll everybody else. But the key to that is that you're steamrolling everybody else. You are handling business. You are doing what you're supposed to do. The elite teams blow out the bad teams. They don't hang around with them. Clemson was not elite the last 3 years. They're starting to get borderline elite. They're starting to be back, Jake. And I'm starting to buy in. I'm a little worried about the defense, but I'm starting to buy in. Cade looks great. He's making good decisions. He's making fast decisions. He's running the football very well. I can't wait until Ohio State has to host Clemson in a playoff. No, that's not going to happen because Clemson's going to win the ACC. I can't wait for Ohio State and Clemson to meet in the playoff, and you and I have to go. If Clemson and Ohio State play in the playoff, you and I have to go. Is that a deal?
What if it's here in Columbus?
I'm there. What if it's here in Clemson?
I'll make my way down there. Deal.
All right, we're in. Clemson's back. I think they're back. I think we still have Pitt to play. I think Virginia Tech is a lot better than people think. Virginia Tech sneakily has one of the best pass rushers in the country. I think they have 21 sacks through 6 games, and they're about third or fifth in the country. They're really high up there. Boise State's the number 1 team in the country with 29 sacks, which is unreal. They just do everything. You still got to play Pitt, still got to play Louisville, still got to play Virginia Tech at Virginia Tech. And then you got to play that team in Columbia that's playing pretty well. And speaking of that team in Columbia, what are we thinking about Alabama right now, Jake?
Here's my question. Who should be worried the most between Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia? Because Alabama only beat South Carolina by 2 points, needed a late interception after South Carolina converted on a wild onside kick, a drop kick that spun like nothing else.
That was beautiful.
And just was going all over the field. South Carolina falls on it. Tennessee, who goes to overtime with Florida, or Georgia, who really hasn't looked good except for 1/2 against Alabama since they've started SEC play.
And 1/2 against Clemson. They look good.
Well, I would say since they started SEC play.
Oh, yeah.
But Georgia was only up 10 on Mississippi State entering the fourth quarter and only ended up winning by 10. These 3 teams, none of them have played well the last couple of weeks. And I'm wondering which one of the 3 should be the most worried.
Tennessee. I don't even have to think about it. And let me tell you why. It's because there's no hope. So Tennessee's playing good defense. They just lost their best linebacker. He tore his ACL. I'm forgetting his name right now. But he tore his ACL. And you're getting into the teeth of your schedule. So you lose to Arkansas, who's a decent team, better than we thought they were going to be. But you're in the teeth of your schedule. You cannot throw the football. You can run the football fairly well, but you cannot throw the football. And you're not going to beat Georgia. You're not going to beat Alabama being one-dimensional. You're not. So if I'm Tennessee, I'm shaking in my bootstraps right now. I'm shaking in my moonshine still. I am not feeling good up in Rocky Top right now watching that offense. Now, to everybody who wants to kill Nico right now, it's his first year starting. Team. Your window is not closing. It is opening. You're going the wrong way. So you're going the right way. You're thinking about it the wrong way. So in that case, long term, I'm most excited about Tennessee. Georgia and Alabama long term, I'm starting to worry a little bit because Alabama doesn't look like Alabama of old. Now, we kind of expected that, but like you lose to Vanderbilt in Nashville, and then you come back against South Carolina, which you think is going to be a get right game, and you look awful. Because Jake, Alabama didn't win that game. South Carolina lost it. South Carolina had a chance to put the game away, put the game on ice, and then they fumbled the freaking football for the third time. They had 6 penalties for 49 yards, and they fumbled the ball 3 times, and I think they even threw a pick. So that's 4 turnovers against Alabama, and it was still a 2-point game. You know what that tells me? If South Carolina doesn't have a first-year quarterback and they have a guy who can take care of the football, they might beat Alabama by double digits. That's scary if you're a Crimson Tide fan. That's scary. Georgia, they're going to be all right. I think Georgia's going through a little bit of adversity. They have a lot of off the field stuff going on right now. Alabama should be the second most scared, but Tennessee should definitely be the most scared.
I actually think Alabama should be the most scared right now because, I mean, you've seen the last 2 weeks. They did not look good against, they did not look good against Vanderbilt. They got out to that massive lead against Georgia, nearly blows it. If Ryan Williams does not save that game for them, they likely lose.
Yeah. And then they look awful against UCF. Let's go back a week prior.
USF, you mean?
USF.
Yeah. Alabama has not played incredibly well this year. And Alabama has a very difficult schedule left. Alabama, I'm going to say it right now. I'm not going to say that they're going to miss the playoff, but I right now think that there's a 50% chance that they miss the playoff. Because their 4 hardest games remaining at Tennessee versus Missouri, at LSU versus Auburn. I think they lose 2 of those games.
Really?
And I forget who their other 2 are in there. I want to say that they probably have some easy game in there remaining. Well, I know they're going to have their cupcake game still remaining.
Yeah, they do that before Auburn.
And then they also have Oklahoma, actually.
They play some pretty good defenses.
So they play good defenses. The problem is Alabama's not playing great defense right now. So if Alabama struggles to score at some point this year, I'm concerned that they're not going to be able to dig out of that hole. Kalen DeBoer, we knew it would be a transition with them. We knew that there'd be a step back because you're replacing arguably the greatest coach of all time. And while the cupboard was fully loaded, it's a very different style of offense that Kalen DeBoer is playing. I think that Alabama is struggling right now. I have a lot of faith in Kalen DeBoer getting it right. I think there is just a little bit more of a culture shock. And I think the Alabama fans are viewing it with a microscope because they're calling out what kind of shirt he's wearing on the sidelines.
I put a tweet out there when they were losing. And I said, this is all because he wore a T-shirt.
All because he wore a T-shirt. All because he wore a T-shirt. I think Georgia will get right. Georgia's schedule concerns me long-term, though, for this year. I could see Georgia dropping. Well, they could drop this weekend to Texas. They still go on the road to Ole Miss. They play Tennessee, and they play Georgia Tech. Between Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama, it's not unreasonable to say that all 3 of them have 3 losses this year.
Well, you know who should be more worried than all of them? That's Ole Miss. Because they are awful.
Is Lane Kiffin a fraud?
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, I've always kind of thought that. I've never liked Lane Kiffin, so I know I have bias towards that. But Ole Miss is not good. I mean, they beat South Carolina pretty handedly, but they should have beat them a lot worse given the circumstances. They lose to Kentucky, a terrible Kentucky team. You blow the – I don't know how you lost to LSU. No clue. You have the lead the entire game. LSU did not lead for a second during regulation, Jake. Not a second. and you somehow blow that game. You got a bye week. Perfect time. But, Jake, they go into the rest of the season. Oklahoma, which plays a really good defense. They've played a couple of teams with a really good defense and a bad offense and somehow found a way to lose. Arkansas, who I think is going to play spoiler to a lot of people.
Georgia, Arkansas looks way better than we thought they would before the year.
Yeah. Georgia, which I think is going to boat race them.
Georgia's going to absolutely wax Ole Miss here in a couple weeks.
Florida, who could very well beat them with DJ
Florida
Lagley.
Looks like they have a pulse.
Yeah, they're coming alive. And then Mississippi State, which but I would put Ole Miss's playoff meter at about 5%, maybe 10. They are on life support. You cannot lose.
Even if they win out, well, if they win out, that's a win over Georgia. But if you win out, this isn't some sort of guarantee for like a 5 seed. You're going to be in the middle there. That win over Georgia would be huge. But Georgia also, I just said I could see them losing 3 games. And if they lose to Texas,
right,
and they lose to Ole Miss, all of a sudden a 9-3 Georgia is not as impressive as a, what would have been 10-2.
I think 3 games for Georgia is a little. You think Georgia's going to be an 8-4 team?
No, I could see them being 9-3 though.
Yeah, no,
if they lose to Texas this weekend, they still have games against Ole Miss, Tennessee, Georgia Tech, and Florida.
I want to talk about that game. Because I have a lot of things to say. There's a lot of Texas people who are really mad at me right now, Jake, and I have some things to get off my chest.
We got to talk about Texas, Oklahoma real quick.
You know how to talk about that game? Go to the police report for Dallas and just look at a murder, because that's what that was. That was a murder.
I'm pretty sure I said last week that I didn't have faith in Oklahoma's offense being able to be consistent and move the ball. Now, I'm pretty sure I took Oklahoma to cover, and I was really stupid for that. But I think it was my faith in Oklahoma's defense. And their defense did play decently throughout. They were able to force some turnovers. They on the first drive, they were able to intercept Quinn Ewers when he overthrew a pass. Quinn Ewers did not look.
He looked awful.
Phenomenal. He looked like he was coming back from an injury, which will make this weekend interesting when they host Georgia. The problem is Oklahoma's offense is the exact opposite of Lincoln Riley's offense. Whose offense would you take right now? Would you take Michigan or Oklahoma's?
Oh God, Jake, that's disgusting. I would take Oklahoma's.
I think I would too.
I would take Michigan. I would take Michigan. At least they have
Michigan's got the offensive line and the running backs. They've got no wide receivers, but they do have Colston Loveland.
Oklahoma's nobody.
Yeah, Oklahoma's got some decent wide receivers, but it's not enough to really do anything.
And none of them played against Texas. Oh, I can't wait to talk about this game, Jake. I can't wait to talk about this game.
Well, tell me your thoughts.
No. We're going to jump into it. I can't wait to talk about it. I can't wait. Oklahoma. No, I'm talking about Texas, Georgia. I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Oh, that one. Yeah, we got that one.
I'm really excited to talk about that. I thought Oklahoma jumps out to a 3-point lead. And we're like, oh, here we go. Red River Shootout. This is what you're used to. This is what happens. The team that shouldn't even be in the same stratosphere somehow competes. And then you come back, you turn the TV back on. You just had a nice little dinner, a little charcuterie board with your family, and you go back, you turn on the TV, and Texas is up like 94-0 or 94-3. So it's like, oh, okay, this is exactly what we thought would happen. Quinn Ewers played a bad game, and they still dominated. Oklahoma's defense was good though. They made it tough. They made it tough for Oklahoma or for Texas to move the football.
Oklahoma shot themselves in the foot a lot in the first half, and finally Texas woke up.
Yeah.
You get an interception on the positive side of the field, you miss a field goal. You only go 18 yards, you miss a field goal. You end up punting on your next drive, you get a field goal going 38 yards, towards the end of the first quarter. In the second quarter, you go punt 17-yard drive, 2 plays 10 yards and a fumble, 1 play 13 yards and a fumble, and then you end the half. Like, you can't fumble on your side of the field multiple times in one half and expect to win, and you cannot miss field goals in rivalry games.
Right, and you can't just keep your defense on the field the whole game. I mean, they're lucky it was only, 34-3?
Yeah, 34-3.
34-3.
I mean, Texas only ran 61 plays. Oklahoma actually ran more plays. They ran 69 plays. Very nice.
Nice. Could you imagine losing to the number 1 team in the country 34-3? I couldn't imagine that.
But Oklahoma only finished with 237 yards. They couldn't run the ball. They only averaged 2.3 yards per rush. Couldn't get anything going there. Passing, Michael Hawkins is a freshman. They were 19 of 30 for 148 yards. It's hard to push the ball downfield. They don't have receivers that are big threats down there. They actually had more first downs because Texas was going in more chunk plays compared to Oklahoma, who had more first downs because they were only moving the ball 3-4 yards at a time.
Right.
I think Oklahoma, there's some cause for concern here long term that this offense has to get better next year. Like, the season is not lost, but it's not far from over. At this point, you want to make a bowl game. You want to be respectable. Games against South Carolina this weekend, not going to be an easy one.
This is the measuring stick. Who is Oklahoma going to be for the rest of the year? And if they don't beat South Carolina, they're not making a bowl game.
Because after that, they have Ole Miss, Maine, Missouri, Alabama, and LSU. You're going to guarantee yourself a win over Maine. Should be, at least. If you cannot beat South Carolina this week, you can play spoiler to one of these other teams, but it's going to be a lot harder when you've got 3 of them on the road still with Ole Miss, Missouri, and LSU.
If Brent Venables and Oklahoma don't make a bowl game, do you think Brent Venables has a job?
Ooh, I think so, but I think he goes into 25 with his seat pretty hot.
Hotter than Billy Napier's?
It'll be pretty hot. It'll be pretty hot. I mean, you want to talk about, you went into the SEC and you were talking a lot of big game. You wanted to be able to be competitive. And right now, if it plays as of right now, you have one SEC win over 6-point win over Auburn, which you nearly lost. I mean, you tried to play Tennessee competitive. You really didn't play Texas competitive. If they lose South Carolina this week, I could see rumbling start saying that it's time for Venables to move on. All right, let's jump into this weekend because we've got a bunch of big games this weekend. The marquee game here that William is so desperate to talk about here is Georgia versus Texas. We got number 1 versus number 5. Georgia is going to travel to Texas. I don't even know the last time Georgia has been in the state of Texas other than for A&M games. Georgia has already lost one game. And Texas has not played a very strong offense. And are we even sure Georgia's a strong offense?
So I'm going to read Texas's schedule, and you tell me who you think is the best, without looking, who you think is the best offense on their schedule. Okay? This is total offense ranking.
Gotcha.
So Colorado State, Michigan, UTSA, Louisiana Monroe, Mississippi State, and Oklahoma. Who do you think the best offense is out of all those?
I mean, my gut says either Colorado State or Louisiana Monroe.
UTSA. You want to guess what the rank is?
If you're doing this, it can't be high, so I'm going to go like 74.
67th. You're really close. So I've gotten a lot of flack from Texas fans because I'm not sold on Texas being the best defense in the country. Bless you. I'm not sold on Texas being a good defense. So they have not been tested at all. They faced the most talented team they've played all year in Oklahoma, and all 4 of their starting wide receivers were out. All 4. And it was already a clunky Oklahoma offense. You know what their offense is ranked? 125th. The week before that, you played Mississippi State, the 78th best offense in the country. And they are very inconsistent. They don't know what their identity is over there right now. UTSA is 67th in the country. They're a group of 5 team. You should dominate them. Michigan is the 119th ranked offense in the country, and all they can do is run the football. Colorado State is the 86th ranked offense in the country. Jake, the average rank of offense that they've played every single week is 100th. I am not ready to give them a crown, a tiara, a bracelet, anything for that defense. They have not done diddly squat in my eyes. This week, they play the 28th ranked offense in terms of total offense. We are going to find out what that offense is. I think that the pass defense is going to get exposed. Texas has a terrible pass defense. Had a terrible pass defense last year. It was 113th in the country. What did they do to change that? They brought in Andrew Makuba from Clemson. That's it. Andrew Makuba got exposed a few times last year. He wasn't the best. He was good at run stop. He would get exposed sometimes in the deep passing game. Georgia's going to try to throw the ball deep. I think Texas is deep. I think this game is going to be a shootout. I think this game is going to have a lot of points. I think it's going to be similar to the Alabama-Georgia game, but I think it's going to be Georgia's second half offense versus Alabama's first half offense, right? It's going to be those two high-powering offenses going back and forth. And the thing that worries me the most about Texas is Quinn Ewers looked bad last week. We've already talked about it a little bit. He looked rusty. You can't be rusty against this Georgia defense. Maybe Arch Manning has to come in and spell him. Maybe he's not fully healthy yet. I don't know. But I think this game is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to see some fireworks.
What metric were you using for total offense? Were you using scoring or yards?
It's the total offense metric on the NCAA website. So
okay,
I think they combine total yards and touchdowns.
Gotcha.
Or no, total yards and scoring.
Because I see Georgia is currently ranked 28th in total offense at 452 yards per game, and offense of points per game. I don't see that. They're 35th with 33.5 points per game, which is clearly higher than anybody else that they played so far.
Right.
My concern for this game is Carson Beck. We saw what he has looked like in some of these games. Kentucky did not look good. Alabama put them in a serious hole to start the game. Auburn looked fine. Mississippi State looked fine. I wouldn't take either of those with, too much emphasis. Auburn's not very good. Mississippi State is absolutely terrible. Carson Beck threw 2 interceptions last week, though. Carson Beck has to take care of the ball. He has to take care of the ball. If he has multiple turnovers in this game, I can almost guarantee Georgia will lose this game.
Yeah, so and that's the problem is Texas has an elite quarterback. Georgia does not. And we've been saying this all year long. Carson Beck is good. That is it. Period. Carson Beck is good. We stop right there. He's not elite. He's not in the Heisman contention. He never should have been last year. He is a good quarterback. I don't know why he's gotten so many flowers. I mean, his stats do look gaudy this year, and I have no idea how. He's thrown for 450 yards in one of the games this year. How?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Carson Beck came into the year where a lot of people thought he would be a Heisman favorite because he played very well last year. He almost worked his way into the Heisman conversation. He has not looked the same. He has looked subpar. He can change that narrative this weekend. If he goes out there and throws for 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, completes 70% of his passes, wins the game. I mean, if he doesn't win the game, he can change the narrative about himself. But he is going to be the reason why they win or lose this game. I have an absolute gut feeling about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I guess we're going to talk about this in the preview or in the predictions at the end. But, man, I think what I worry the most about, these teams are very similar because Georgia has struggled to get a run game going. Georgia prides themselves on having a good running game. They haven't been very consistent running the football this year. I mean, Nate Frazier came on strong against Clemson, but they haven't done much with him. Brandon Robinson can't stay on the field. Trevor Etienne's looked okay. I mean, he's looked good, but not the guy that they thought they were getting. And then Texas, they keep getting guys hurt. I mean, I think they have Jaden Blue, who's finally good, and he seemed to get things going last weekend. But, man, if you can't run the football, it's going to be tough. I think we're going to see a lot of turnovers, like you said. I think this is going to be a fun game. I think we're going to see a lot of lead changes. I think Georgia ends up taking this one, though, Jake.
That's bold. That's bold. Let's move on to the third weekend in October. Alabama is going to travel to Tennessee this weekend. In what we already talked about, both these teams have some serious concerns. The loser of this game is going to be in serious jeopardy of missing the college football playoff because 2 losses before the end of October, 9-3 might be good enough, but do you really want to put it to the test of finding out if a 3-loss team is going to make it in the first year of the 12-team college football playoff? Maybe you can make it work, but you're going to be the 11 seed. Heck, you might even be the 12 seed, because if Boise State keeps winning like they're winning, they might end up in the middle of that pack there. They might not be in the bottom, the bottom seed they're playing at, whoever the 5 seed is. When you look at this game, is Nico a bigger threat to his own team, or is Alabama's defense a bigger threat to their own team?
Gosh, Jake, that's a good question. I think it's Nico. I think the fact that I don't know if they're keeping the training wheels on him, or if he's just really not ready, if the game's just too fast for him right now. I don't know, but I think Nico is inhibiting that offense a little too much. He's not a bad quarterback. Guys, he's very, very talented. He's going to be great in Tennessee. He's just not this year. He's not ready. I don't know why people think that a quarterback should come in their first year starting and just blow the world up and be great. Probably not the best analogy. But I think Alabama's defense is going to be able to feast on Nico this week. And I think that's why the edge on who I'm more worried about, or who's the biggest detriment, goes towards Nico, because he's a first-year starter. He's going to make some bonehead choices.
I'm concerned about this Alabama defense. We talked about it. I think that Alabama's offense versus the Tennessee defense is going to basically be a slugfest. We've seen Tennessee as a really good defense. They struggled a little bit at times against Florida this past weekend. I think you could potentially say a little bit of a look ahead. I know Tennessee and Florida is a rivalry, but Alabama's coming to town. Everybody knows Alabama's coming to town.
Well, that's a rivalry too. Don't forget.
Yeah. It's
third Saturday in October.
Third Saturday in October. Massive, massive game. They've only won once in the last 17 years. I could see there have been a little bit of a look ahead towards Alabama, a little bit of unfocused, knowing that a Florida team that has been talked about, that Billy Napier is going to be fired. So I think that the defense may have suffered from that a little bit. The offense for Tennessee, I'm very concerned about.
Well,
James Pierce was supposed to be like the best college football player on defense this year. And
it's kind of had a Harold Perkins kind of year, where Harold Perkins came out flying his freshman year and then got quiet. And by the way, Keenan Peely is the guy I was thinking of earlier, the middle linebacker. He's the captain of that defense. He's out for the year for Tennessee.
Yeah, Pierce only has 19 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery. Isn't really living up to that hype that people thought, potential number 1 overall pick. I mean, he had 9.5 sacks last year. I mean, you can certainly change the narrative. He had 7 tackles alone this past weekend, 9 against Arkansas. He had half a sack. So maybe you're starting to get it going. You've got 16 tackles your last 2 weeks alone. Maybe you're starting to get it going. Maybe there's been some adjustments on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, this is going to be a massive key, because Jalen Milroe, you can't let him get loose. Obviously, Ryan Williams is a massive player there. Justice Haynes and their running back core there for Alabama, you've got to be able to slow them down. I mean, I do think that this game comes down to the other side, though. Can Nico score enough points to give Alabama the game? Or give Tennessee the game?
I don't think Alabama. I think Alabama's lucky this week. So I put out a fun fact on Sunday. 2 weekends in a row, my alma mater, Sumter High School, has forced a turnover on Jalen Milroe. Miles Capers for Vanderbilt had a strip sack, and O'Donnell Fortune for South Carolina had a pick in the end zone. Tennessee doesn't have any players from Sumter on their roster, so Alabama's looking good this weekend.
You heard it here. You heard it here. Without a Sumter player on the Tennessee defense,
they're going to struggle.
They're going to struggle. They're going to struggle. I'll be interested to see what the end score is here, because if it ends up being a blowout one way or the other, like let's say Tennessee somehow blows out Alabama. Alabama is basically dead. Maybe they can work their way back in, but it would take a lot of help. If you get absolutely blown out, and same thing, if Tennessee gets blown out, I think it's even worse.
Yeah, well, go read my college football playoff committee model. If anybody's going to get help, there's 2 teams in the SEC that would get help. You want to guess who they are?
Probably Georgia and Alabama.
God almighty, Jake, you're spot on today. You're spot on.
I didn't even look at it, but I'm guessing. I didn't even look at that part, but I'm guessing it was those 2.
Yep, it's those 2.
Michigan is going to travel to Illinois this weekend. Chance for Michigan to finally salvage their season. If Michigan loses this weekend, I mean, their season's over, right?
It's over. It's already over, but Illinois is about to put the freaking nail in that coffin. Luke Altmaier is about to show them how to play quarterback.
Michigan's pass defense ranks worse than 100 this year.
Yeah, they're awful. Will Johnson's supposed to be. I was all about that freaking Michigan defense. So I thought Texas, beating them the way they did week 2 was awesome. And then now we've seen Michigan play the rest of the year, and I'm like, I don't know about that. But who's starting for Michigan this week? What'd you say again? Jack Tuttle?
Jack Tuttle.
Uncle Jack Tuttle. Isn't that what they call him? Uncle Jack? He's been there for like 94 years, working on his doctorate. Him and Cam Rising are in the same Cam Rising, Van Wilder, and Jack Tuttle are all in the same college plan.
They are. And I don't think Michigan's going to get too much better. They had a bye week last week. You would really hope that a week with Jack Tuttle taking the first team reps. This game's on the road. Illinois is going to be ready for it. I mean, this is probably one of the biggest games at Illinois in a while.
Yeah.
Illinois has a chance to make some noise. Illinois is not a playoff contender. But if Illinois makes it to 9 wins this year, that's some hype.
That is pretty good.
Brett Bielema's got it going over there. That's the second time in 3 years that he's had this team ranked. I love what he's building over there. With this 12-team playoff, this is what Illinois needs. They need this kind of hype. They need this kind of momentum to help build to potentially get to a 10-2. Takes the right year, takes the right schedule to get to 10-2 for Illinois, but it could be coming.
Who would have thought that going into week 8 that the two Big Ten teams that we're talking about a lot in terms of hype would be Illinois and Indiana? Who had that on their bingo card?
You had Indiana.
I had Indiana. Oh, God, man. I guess whatever.
Final game we're going to talk about here real quick before we get into our underdog and we talk about the rest, our picks for this weekend. LSU versus Arkansas. I don't even know what to think of this game.
That's essentially the note I put in. Fun fact, this morning I got the notification that you'd opened up the Google Doc for us to start working on this, and I opened it up and I saw you typing away and I saw that game go on there, and the first thing that came to my head was like, what the hell do I do with this game? I have no clue who LSU is. I have no clue who Arkansas is. Not because I haven't watched, but because I have watched, and I have no idea what I'm going to get each and every play. Is Garrett Nussmeier going to do the dumbest thing we've ever seen his entire life? Or is he going to come back and win the game for you in the fourth quarter and then eventually in overtime? Is Taylor Green going to turn the ball over 94 times? Or is he going to lead you to victory over a top 10 team, in a game that they have no business being a part of?
Ole Miss is not a phenomenal defense, and he was 22 of 51 against them. Now, he did throw for 337 yards, but he also threw 2 interceptions, and he completed just 43% of his passes.
Yeah, he made it count when he did complete a pass. But it's like, yeah, what do you do with that, Jake? What do you do? I do know what I'm going to do. Is this game in the pick'ems?
It should be in our pick'em.
I know what I'm going to do, but
pick neither.
I wish I could. I honestly, if a team has been more consistent, it's been Arkansas all year. So if we have to pick the most consistent, crazy team in this matchup, it's been Arkansas. So Arkansas, you take away Oklahoma State, where they blow it in the fourth quarter. You take that game away. They've been pretty dang good every single week. They look good against Tennessee. I mean, they looked good against Texas A&M. They ended up losing by 4, I think it was. But they're pretty consistent. LSU, you don't know if you're going to get the team that lost to USC, the team that had to come back and win against South Carolina, the team that had to come back and win against Ole Miss. Who is Ole Miss? LSU is very confusing. I'm not high on LSU. I still think that defense is very, very vulnerable, and I think Taylor Green has a good game this weekend.
Yeah, I'm not sold on LSU. We talked about their game against Ole Miss. They have been incredibly inconsistent. They haven't put together multiple stretches of good games so far this year. I mean, they barely beat South Carolina. They barely beat UCLA. They barely beat Ole Miss. Eventually, barely stops happening. Eventually, barely starts happening. And they have 6 tough games left on their schedule. Arkansas, A&M, Alabama, Florida, Vanderbilt, and Oklahoma. I'm sorry, they lose 2 of them. I don't know how. I don't know which ones. My gut is telling me that at Arkansas is not going to be a fun place for them to be this weekend.
No, at Tennessee.
I do not think Taylor Green. I mean, Arkansas has proven that they can win a big game, especially at home. They beat Tennessee at home. I am starting to feel inclined to think that, I mean, they had a bye week after they beat Tennessee. It's not like they're going to have a hangover game. You had a chance to decompress. You had a chance to celebrate your game. And now LSU comes.
And this is a rivalry
game. Games. It's a rivalry game. Taylor Green has played well so far this year overall. He hasn't thrown a ton of touchdowns, and he's thrown 5 interceptions. You just need him to do enough. Need him to use his legs and get mobile. I think Taylor Green wins his games with his legs. I think Taylor Green finishes with like 75, 80 yards rushing and only like 160 yards passing.
But I don't think this LSU defense is going to be opportunistic enough to force him to turn the ball over. So I think that's going to help Arkansas immensely. And again, this is a rivalry game. You don't know what you're going to get. LSU, oh man, I don't think LSU's defense is what they need it to be. I think Garrett Nussmeier, you can't go 22 for 50 against this Arkansas team. This Arkansas team is going to win 8 games. I think they're going to win 8 games, maybe even 7 or 8 games. I think they're going to be much better than everybody thought. They're going to come in here. I think they're going to handle business, which is probably bad if you're an Arkansas fan based on how my prediction picks went last week. So I'm sorry, but I'm pretty high on Arkansas this weekend.
All right, let's jump into our underdog picks for this weekend. But first, are you ready to take your college football fandom to the next level? Check out Underdog. It's the easiest way to draft your perfect team or make pick'em entries for all of the biggest games. We've used Underdog so far this year. The last 5 weeks, at least one of us has gone 2 for 2.
That's right.
Well, you went 2 for 2 for 4 straight weeks. I went 2 for 2 last week.
Is my streak dead because I accidentally didn't turn my picks in last week? I put them in on the podcast, but I didn't turn them in on Underdog, so I technically didn't lose money.
You told people, and if they followed you, they lost.
That's true.
So you can sign up today using promo code WALKON to claim your free pick plus your first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Make sure to visit Underdog Fantasy or find them in the App Store. You must be 18 or older to play, and terms will apply. Like I said, went 2 for 2 last week. Of course, I don't have them up in front of me, so I can't tell you exactly what I did. I know I had a Jeremiah Smith, I believe his long reception, which was like 27, over 27 or higher than 27.5 yards. And then Woody Marsh to go higher than 23.5 receiving yards.
Boom. There you go. Look at there.
You know, I'm telling you, we're getting hot now. We're getting hot. Love my 2 picks for this week. We're going to start with Nico lower than 199.5 passing yards.
Let me tell you what I respect about you, Jake. I have not touched a lower or a non-offensive player this entire time, and you have dabbled all over the realm of the spectrum.
Sometimes you just got to take kicker points. Sometimes you just got to take kicker points.
Hats off to you, sicko.
Nico hasn't gone from higher than 200 passing yards since the NC State game on September 7th. I know the Alabama secondary has struggled. I think Tennessee runs the ball more in this game than they pass it. I don't think they trust Nico enough to throw the ball. The other one I got here is Kansas State wide receiver J.C. Brown to go higher than 52.5 receiving yards. He's hit this in 4 of his 6 games so far this year. Did 51 in another one, so was almost there. West Virginia's pass defense ranks 104th in the country. J.C. is the highest leading receiver on the team. Avery Johnson's going to look to him. Kansas State's trying to make a push for the college football playoff. They're going to need to win this week. They're going to pass the ball a lot.
J.C. Brown looked really good last week, and I became a big J.C. Brown fan. And you know what? Neil Brown put it perfect. The head coach for West Virginia put it perfect. You don't need to win every weekend, Jake. You just have to have fun. Okay? If you had fun, you won.
As long as you had fun.
Yeah, freaking break. The algorithm has reached West Virginia. We're screwed. We're screwed. The coal miners are saying stuff like that, Jake. All right. This is redemption week. I went 4 in a row, lost last week. It was rigged, but that just means we're due this week. I've got Carson Beck, so my non-elite quarterback that I've been talking a lot of trash about. I've got him going higher than 271.5 passing yards and rushing yards combined. He only hasn't done that in 2 games this year, and he goes against a Texas team that we talked about earlier has played essentially an average of the 100th ranked defense every single year or every single week. So I think Carson Beck takes advantage of them, and I think he's able to do that. I think he throws 300 yards in this game. And then shout out to Derek Grady, one of my colleagues at work, his nephew, Jalen Lane, for Virginia Tech wide receiver. I have him going higher than 39.5 yards receiving. He's averaging 54 yards per game, and BC just lost their best cornerback to a torn ACL, which sucks, but that does help me want to pick this. So I'm going with Derek Grady's nephew, Jalen Lane, to go higher than 39.5 yards for Virginia Tech this weekend against Boston College.
Time to get into our walk-on weekly 10. Oh, but by the way, if you did not know, make sure you use promo code walk-on for Underdog. Go get your first pick and your deposit bonus up to $1,000 in bonus cash. But now we've got our 10 games for this week. I went 6-4 last week. You went a measly 3-7.
I already told you.
Rough week for you.
Doesn't count.
Rough week for you on the 4 games that we split on.
Are you saying rough because it's underdog fantasy? Rough.
Actually, so we only split on 3 games last week, and I took all of them.
That's rigged.
I took all of them. You still have the overall lead. You have a 3-game lead on me, but we've got 7 weeks left. Plenty of time to catch up. I think I'm going to catch up to you this week.
Last year you did this. I was up big last year, and you did the same thing. So I've learned my mistakes. I'm not Ryan Day. I'm not going to blow it. I'm not going to fall for your little schemes, Jake. This week I'm about to pull back ahead. Don't you worry.
I'm going to run 12 men out on the field for you. That way we make sure we win.
Yeah, you might need to.
All right, first game here. We got a Friday night game between Oklahoma State and BYU. BYU is a 9.5-point favorite against Oklahoma State.
Man, I was really thinking that BYU was the easy pick here, but after this whole headbutt thing from the Cowboy, God, I feel like Oklahoma State's about to go on a tear because of that. I'm not buying into it though. I've been going against the Cougs all year. I've been waiting for Cinderella to find her glass slipper, and it just hasn't happened. But I think I have to go with the Mighty Mormons of BYU. I'm going BYU minus 9.5.
I'm also taking BYU here. Alan Bowman has not looked good. Last 3 games, he's completed 52%, 48% of his passes. 2 of those 3 games against ranked teams. The other one against West Virginia, who we just talked about, has a terrible pass defense. Somehow, he did not look good against them. I think BYU has found a way to win games. I think they're going to continue. I like BYU big here Friday night. But Friday night games in October, we start getting a little weird. It wouldn't shock me, but I like BYU to win this game pretty big.
I was about to ask if that's Friday the 13th when today's literally the 15th. So
we already passed 13th.
If you're watching on YouTube, you definitely just saw me have an epiphany and then shut it down really quickly.
This week, we also have we dropping a G5 game in here. Coastal Carolina versus Louisiana this weekend.
Let's go Chanticleers. I can't go against them. It's essentially, it's a little bit more than a pick. I'm going towards Louisiana. I'm going with the mighty Chanticleers. It's a home game for Coastal. Going to Myrtle Beach. No one wants to go to Conway in October. It's a tough place to be. It's tough to play. It's almost as tough as Piscataway. I'm a poet and even crossed my mind. Let's go Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, I'm also going to go Coastal Carolina in this game. They're coming off the loss to James Madison, but I think James Madison is actually really, really good. You don't look pleased with me taking this. Were you hoping that I would take Louisiana?
I need you to pick other teams. I need me to get a bigger lead, and you're just making me mad right now, Jake. So I'm just looking away. and I'm gonna act like it's not happening right now. So you just keep on going.
Louisiana has obviously won a bunch of games. They lost to Tulane, but it concerns me that they struggled against Southern Miss and they struggled against App State, who App State is not as good as people think is this year. I'm going to take Coastal Carolina to cover the 4.5 points. I don't know if they're going to win, but I think they at least cover the spread here. Next game we got here, Arizona State is a 2.5-point underdog to Cincinnati.
I love Kyle Dillingham. I love
Kenny?
Arizona State. Kenny, sorry, not Kyle. Shout out Kenny. I got Arizona State and Utah's coaches confused. I love Kenny Dillingham. What's the running back's name again? He's going
Cam Scatabo.
Scatabo, baby. So Scatabo has more broken tackles than Ashton Jeanty. So Scatabo is going to have a big game. I'm going Arizona State -2.5. I think they're a pretty damn good football team.
Arizona State's actually the underdog in this game.
I know, which is crazy. So, excuse me, +2.5. Sorry, I'm going Arizona State +2.5. I'm feeling good about my Sun Devils.
You might as well look away on this one too, because I'm taking Arizona State solely because of Cam Scatabo. He was the main reason why they beat Utah. Has gone for over 300 yards over the last 2 games, 3 touchdowns. Has been a factor in the passing game as well. The dude just knows how to break tackles. He's helping carrying this team. Cincinnati, to me, is still a little bit unproven. I know that they have won games this year. They're 4-2. I'm still just not sure. I'm just not sure what to make of them. I think we'll learn more about them this weekend when they play Arizona State, because if Arizona State wins, I mean, they're 6-1. They're going to be ranked. If Cincinnati wins, they're 5-2, and they're right in the thick of that Big 12 race as well. So, never know. I'm not saying Cincinnati's going to, be involved in the Big 12 race when it comes down to it, but they win this game, I would be interested. But I've got Arizona State winning. I've got them winning by 10 points or so. Miami and Louisville. Miami is a 4.5-point favorite on the road against Louisville this weekend.
I think Miami covers this too easily. I'm giving up on Louisville. They're dead to me.
I'm actually going to take Louisville. I'm going to take Louisville here. I think Miami's luck is going to run out eventually. I think it happens this weekend. Cam Ward is just making wild plays. They're winning in a crazy fashion. Louisville played Notre Dame really tough. I think that Louisville is going to – they also played SMU pretty tough. I think Louisville is better than I gave them credit for. I don't think they're great, but I think they're good enough. And I think with this game being in Louisville this weekend, I think it's going to give Miami some problems.
You know what? What sucks, Jake, is the one game you pick against me, I'm going to be pulling for Louisville in that game. So I'm essentially pulling for you to get that game right. Also, if you want to know a fun fact about Louisville, we're talking about, even if they're bad, I think I'm giving up on them, but they're not terrible. So their total offense is 22nd in the country, and their total defense is 43rd in the country. They are an above-average team in every breadth of the imagination. Tyler
Shucks played pretty well. He is basically, he's 6-year quarterback that, there's a reason he's not in the NFL yet. Injuries have derailed part of his career. He's on his 3rd school by now. I think he's pretty good. I think he can give Miami's defense some trouble. The biggest thing is, can the Louisville defense stop Xavier Restrepo? Can they stop Cam Ward? Can they stop the rushing attack? Can they make Miami make this lower scoring game? We saw Virginia Tech have a lot of success.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens here. Nebraska will travel to Indiana this weekend, where Indiana is a 6.5-point favorite this weekend. I already think I know which way you're going with this, but go ahead and say it.
Yeah. I'm staying on that Choo-Chooser Express. Let's go Indiana. I think they cover. Indiana's a good football team. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do, Jake? They're a good football team. They're a good old ball club.
If this game was in Lincoln, I would probably take Nebraska. It doesn't matter the spread. I would probably take Nebraska to win the game. But it being in Indiana, I think the Hoosiers keep it rolling. I don't know how much longer they keep it rolling. I think Indiana does eventually slip up somewhere. I think the talent gap is going to match up eventually somewhere. But I like Indiana this weekend as well.
Yeah, second half of the season is going to be brutal for them.
Number 12 Notre Dame is an 11.5-point favorite over Georgia Tech.
So Georgia Tech has the 24th ranked rush defense in the country. I don't hate Georgia Tech. I'm pretty sure Notre Dame just lost their best cornerback as well.
Benjamin Morrison's going to be out for the year.
He's out for the year. But, I mean, that's not going to affect them too much. Georgia Tech doesn't throw the football anyway. I think Notre Dame might win this game, but I think it's going to be closer than we think. So I'm going Georgia Tech plus 11.5.
I'm going to take Notre Dame minus 11.5 this game. I really think that Notre Dame is going to do enough. The injury to Benjamin Morrison does scare me because he is probably one of the top 5 cornerbacks in the country. He is the definition of a lockdown cornerback, first-round pick. But like you said, Georgia Tech doesn't run the ball. They're pretty heavy on that run game, or they pretty heavy on the run game, not as heavy on the pass game. They like to milk the clock. But Notre Dame's going to play a similar style. I think Riley Leonard has started to figure out the offense a little bit more. I think he's getting better. I'll take Notre Dame to win by 2 touchdowns here. Number 8, LSU is a 2.5-point favorite against Arkansas this weekend. Who do you like?
Give me Arkansas. Ooh, pig, suey.
Nice. Nice. I'm taking Arkansas as well. LSU's too inconsistent for me. Arkansas with that week off between the Tennessee and the LSU game. I think Taylor Green takes care of business here. I think the SEC starts to cannibalize himself this weekend, and I think this is a game where you can see the SEC start to cannibalize himself. Michigan is a 3.5-point favorite on the road at Illinois this weekend.
I love that Illinois is going to be the team that puts the nail into Michigan's top 25 ranked season. They will not be ranked after this season for the rest of the season. Illinois is about to put an end to that. Give me Illinois plus 3.5. I think they beat them by 14 points.
That is bold. I'm going to take Illinois. I think Illinois wins the game. I think Luke Altmaier finds a way to pass the ball downfield. It does concern me a little bit that Purdue was able to drop 45 points on Illinois, but Illinois found a way to win. Luke Altmaier was able to drive down the field. That game got a little wild. If nobody was watching, there were onside kicks that happened. So we'll see.
There's 3 in that game, were there not?
There was tons of onside kicks. There were so many onside kicks this weekend. I can't tell you last time I saw an onside kick converted, and there was like 4 or 5 done this weekend alone.
Yeah, South Carolina, Oregon, Illinois.
And there was probably more. There's probably someone else somewhere too. Last one I remember is when Tennessee kicked an onside kick when they were up 30 on Kent State in the first quarter.
You know what? They haven't been really good since that's happened.
Karma comes back to get you.
Karma.
Speaking of karma, Alabama's a 2.5-point favorite over Tennessee this weekend.
Alabama.
You riding
Easy.
with Bama?
No, it's not in Tuscaloosa. It's in Neyland. Oh, the one thing that scares me about this game, I forgot to mention. Why in the hell, Kalen DeBoer, are you going to get in front of a camera and talk about how Neyland Stadium is not louder than some of the other environments you've been in? Shut up. Don't say anything.
Has he ever actually been to Neyland?
I don't think so. But why would you ever say that? Why would you ever say that? That's easy bulletin board material.
Yeah, just don't say anything. I mean, that reminds me of like the Iowa running back who came out the week of when they were playing Ohio State saying he's from Ohio, but he wouldn't have gone to Ohio State even if he got the offer. Yeah, okay. Yeah, they just threw that one up on the bulletin board because you got half the kids from Ohio. I'm sure that's not going to tick them off. Anyways, I'm going to take Alabama in this game too. I think Alabama's offense just does enough. I don't think that Nico is going to move the ball consistently. He has struggled. His 5-star ranking, he's obviously talented. He just needs more time to develop. This is why he did not play. This is why he did not start last year. This is why you had Joe Milton. This is why freshmen don't always need to start.
Thank you. Say it again.
Unless you're Jeremiah Smith or Ryan Williams.
That's not quarterback, though.
Yeah, at wide receiver, Jeremiah Smith is so good. Dude, he's so good.
He's fun to watch.
Dude, he cooked Jabbar Muhammad one play, and it was an underthrown ball by Will Howard, and he just got like almost like spun out of the way of Muhammad and just like took the ball on the underthrown ball.
Yeah,
it's awesome to watch.
He's unbelievable.
And then last game we got here, Georgia will travel to Texas this weekend. Texas is a 3.5-point favorite.
You know what, Jake? I'm happy for you. Y'all haven't had a good wide receiver in a long time.
I know. It's been a while since Ohio State had a good wide receiver.
I'm going Georgia. I alluded to it earlier. I think Georgia mollywops Texas. I think the cannibalism continues. I'm not sold on Texas. I think Texas is going to get exposed this weekend.
I'm going to take Texas, actually. The Georgia offense has been concerning me. Yeah. In big games, they've seemed to disappear. Carson Beck hasn't played great. He threw 2 interceptions last week against Mississippi State. They only scored 13 points against Kentucky. They go down big to Alabama. They're not going to be able to go down big on the road at Texas and be able to do anything. Carson Beck can't have costly turnovers. I know Ewers didn't look great in this game against Oklahoma. I think there might have been a little bit of a coming back from an injury. Hasn't played much. We've seen Ewers be incredibly talented. We've seen him step up in big games. I think he steps up big against Georgia on Saturday. So by my count, that is 3 games that we are different on again. If I go 3-0 on those,
we're tied up.
I'm just saying. Just saying.
And that's
overall on the year, though. Overall on the year, for you have 36 wins out of 70, or I have 36 wins out of 74. You have 39 wins out of 74. I'm at almost 49%. You're at about 53%. So if everybody's followed you, you're net positive. If you're following me, you're not yet. Follow me for the second half, and we'll be doing good.
You're second half team.
Exactly. We're second half team. We're exactly 500 over the last 3 weeks. I have a 1-game lead over you the last 3 weeks. What really killed me was in week 2, you took a 3-game lead on me alone. And then the next week you took an additional 2 games. So we're having to claw back in it right now.
That's right. We're battling.
So this was actually the first week that I have straight up beat you since week 0.
And that week was rigged too. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, it was rigged. It was rigged. Well, that does it for this week's episode. We appreciate everybody joining and listening to us. Make sure that you go and check out Heart State Brewery, located in Columbus, Ohio. Break American IPA. Great beer. Loved it. I wish I had actually been able to pour mine decently and not, 60% foam at the very beginning. Absolutely great beer. You should go check them out. Homestead Beer, they do classic German Pilsners, double IPAs. They have a great tap room, diverse beers, and enjoy some American pub fare where every sip is better. Also, make sure to go check out Underdog. Use promo code WALKON to claim your special pick up to $1,000 on your first pick, or $1,000 bonus cash and a free pick. Make sure to go check out the walkonredshirts.com. We're putting out anywhere from 7 to 10 pieces a week, recaps, previews, anything that you can imagine, updates on coaching, college football playoff information, group of 5. There's something for everybody on there. We put out the betting guide every Saturday morning. Check out Walk on Red Shirts on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Check out William on Twitter at Walk on Moose. Anything else that you'd like to say to the people before we head into week 8 there, William?
I'm making a vow to myself that I don't say anything in closing because the last few weeks I've said some I don't know how to describe it, some cringeworthy stuff. So this is me telling you that I'm not saying anything at the end.
We'll see about that. Well, I appreciate everybody joining us, and make sure to go and like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll be back here again next week.